Keith here, and this is the second past version 3 question I've received in the last few days, and it's all due to a change between past 2 and past 3 in terms of how groups work. So this one is to do with SIMPER and ANOSIM, so let's have a look. I'm starting here with these 4 groups. This is not a recommended sampling design, but the map shows you what the situation is, and here's the data. So first step is to select it all. So I've got it all selected, and I've got past 3 open here, and turn on column and row attributes. I do have labels for the rows, so I'm going to click here in this cell so that the row labels get pasted down here. And I know in this video I'm repeating this thing that I've shown in previous videos, but it's important to get the information into past properly for the functions to work. So Excel, copy, and past, paste. So the row labels come in here, which are handy for labeling graphs. Now, past version 3 has different types of variables, and this was not the case with past version 2. So up here, site is a group variable, and it's basically text labels for the groups or for the sites, and site number, site NO, is also a group variable. It's numeric variables for the sites. Now the other types of variables there, ordinal, nominal and binary, are not ones that I commonly use, but some people may use binary. Incidentally, site over here is not nominal because it does actually identify groups, so it's not labels but group identifiers. Okay, so having done that, I then need to put symbols and colors for graphs. So I'm selecting there with a keyboard because I find it easier, and in past version 3 we've got to select between select mode and drag rows or columns. And so I've got the numeric variable that's indicating the sites and some other variable. If I don't have another variable there, there'll be an error. Row colors and symbols, and I'll use filled square to indicate that these are potentially polluted, and I'll use colors down here, gradually shading from light blue down to red. Okay, now before I leave, as I've said a couple of times in previous videos, if I go out of this option and then restart it to change, for instance, the symbols, everything goes back to the default. So it's a good idea to set colors and symbols at the same time. Okay, I'm in select mode. I want to drag columns now, but I don't need to be able to see row attributes or column attributes. So the question was about ANOSIM and SIMPER. SIMPER is looking at the percentage that different taxa contribute to differences between groups. And this is where people are running into problems. They are, well, let me restart. This is where I think people are running into problems. They are going and selecting the taxa and then trying to run ANOSIM and SIMPER, because in version 2 it would usually take grouping variables from the colors and from the row colors. No more. I need to take this and drag it over here, and so the first variable is the grouping variable. select the whole lot. If you check videos I've done recently, I've just done one for past version 3 looking at PCA where there's a similar situation. The first variable that's selected is actually a group variable. Now in past version 2 this would have created problems because past 2 didn't have group variables, but now past 3 does. It knows that that variable there identifies groups. I don't know that it has to be the first variable, but it makes sense. Okay, so multivar and test, and we've got SIMPER down here and one-way Anasim up here. So let's start with SIMPER, and SIMPER automatically picks up that there's groups in here, so groups 1 through to 4, and so it's simply a matter here of selecting the groups I wish to compare and the distance similarity measure. It's defaulting here to Brake-Curtis, which is appropriate. And remember that in past 3 you usually have to recompute. So up here it's giving information in terms of which taxa are contributing most to distinguishing group 1, or sorry I should say site 1 and site 3. Anasim is a test, so multivariate test, one-way Anasim, and so the Anasim is a multivariate way of testing for differences among groups based on a set of variables. The variables in this case are the taxa, and the information that's being used is information on the abundances of taxa. Now we need to again select the appropriate similarity index, which would be Brake-Curtis for biota, and recompute. Again, it's taking the groups from that first variable, the grouping variable. So the R value here, which ranges from -1 to 1, if there's no difference among groups, R is going to be around about 0, and the closer to 1, the bigger the difference among groups. So we've got an R that's 0.85 with a p-value 0.0002, so very significant differences among groups. Pairwise here, it's recognizing the 4 groups from that site number group variable. As I've said in a few previous videos, even though there's highly significant differences among groups, the pairwise tests here are unable to identify them even with uncorrected significance, and that's because the pairwise tests here are operating on half the data. The sample size here is 12 samples in total. For pairwise tests comparing site 1 and site 2, only half those, 6 samples are being used. So these tests are going to have low power, and so that's why they're all coming out as non-significant. The selection here in terms of the options, the bottom option here will give us the R values. They're all 1, indicating that there really are significant differences, but the problem is one to do with power. Using pairwise tests in other situations, such as per manover, will give us F values. And then the others are to do with corrections for multiple tests. So p-values uncorrected significance is just doing p-values for each test and ignoring the fact that we're doing a set of multiple tests on basically the same data. Bond-for-only corrected p-values will be the most conservative option, and generally people avoid that now because it is far too conservative. The sequential bond-for-only, honestly don't know how that works, but it's a mixture between uncorrected and bond-for-only corrected. There are now multiple options for ways of correcting p-values when doing many sequential tests on the same set of data. So hopefully that short 10-minute video there clarifies things to do with Anasim and SIMPER in past version 3.